is the Cleveland Conversations with God group, which has no rules. You can ask any question. There's nothing that's off limits. And though we do focus on the works of Neil Donald Walsch, which is this cool little book here, highly recommend getting the trilogy in one book so you have like one index to look up anything. We pull from all different resources that we have available. Both Sean and I do access bars.
Yeah.
He just did a whole cool dentistry thing called Happy
Yeah.
Mouth.
Happy Mouth Energetic
So
Dentistry.
like you never know where there might be a tool or a idea or concept that we could offer for something going on in your life that that could be a contribution for you. And we have people both live here, and we have you guys online, and we'll see if if you're watching online, please comment on under the Cleveland Conversations with God Facebook group. That's where you can go because I can't watch multiple places. So if you can just go one place and make comments, that would be cool. But before we started the film, we were already talking about tools that can help people who identify with being an empath, especially ones who draw narcissists. What kind of tools could you use in order to cope with those types of things going on? And if you always feel under attack and that type of thing. And I'll let you talk about it first. We were talking about interesting point of view, if you want to kind of touch on that.
Yeah, one of the tools we briefly talked about was Access Consciousness tool called Interesting Point of View. And what would your life be like if you took everything with the approach that it's an interesting point of view? So any action that you take, interesting point of view, that I did this or I have this opinion. And then the same thing when you encounter other people in your day to day life, interesting point of view that this person has their point of view. And what would it be like if you took that tool and applied it in any situation? Would you kind of feel lighter that there's more of a possibility? So we ask people to play with that interesting point of view tool and see what happens.
Right. And Ryan, who's not here with us tonight, he's usually at these meetings.
But we're borrowing his room.
Yeah, this is his room, so like Ryan is contributing even though he's not here, and he's probably watching the video saying, "Son of a, they're using my room." But anyway, he runs a whole. He has a whole modality called empathic empowerment training, and he has specialty things specifically for empaths and narcissists. So definitely check out. I'll post a link afterwards for people who are really tools that similar to interesting point of view is if you name it, you claim it. And the idea is that with empaths, there's a difference between sensing and feeling. Sensing is the awareness of an energy, where you just have the awareness that something's going on. But once you label it as something like, oh my gosh, that person's angry, or oh my gosh, that person's a jerk, or whatever it is, once you label it, now you have a judgment about it. And that locks you into the addiction of polarity, where you're in this place of duality. Versus if it's truly just interesting point of view, you can be an allowance of whatever space that they're in. Now moving around you, not to you, and it's a whole different energy around that.
Yeah, and we can probably tie that into conversations with, which is a lot of the conversations that Neil has about stuff being is and just existing, and not having anything in particular opinion or idea about it, but just acknowledging that everything is, and it's very similar to the interesting point of view tool. If everything just is,
it is what it is.
Can you really be in judgment about it?
Right. And one tool that Neil talks about, and I forget which book it's in, but he has this I am meditation, and it is what it is. It's kind of you just walk around, and as many things as spark to somebody, a clerk in a grocery store, an ex-husband, tangible things like a laptop or whatever, you always say, I am that, I am. And the idea is that you're putting your space into the place of the oneality where you're acknowledging that you are one with everything. I am that I am. And when you can come from that point of view too, it's kind of like we were talking before the camera came on, Ho'oponopono. I'm going to always mispronounce it. But it's the whole process of, in a way, going through that process, you're acknowledging them as you. And by I forgive you, I love you, thank you, I forget all of them. You probably could tell them better. But in a way that you're coming from the place of oneality. And a lot of the tools in Neil Donald Walsch's work, it's really to get you from this place of duality where you feel separate from oneness to the place where you are co-creating with the spirit of the universe, if you will, or with consciousness itself. It's a co-creation, and not life is happening through you then instead of you. And combined with some of the other things we're talking about is really where there's like a tipping point, and you start really rolling with momentum and what you're actualizing in your life. just
Yeah.
making sure that when the other stream is going. But go ahead with the next point. And feel free, everybody in the room, you can feel free to speak up if there's particular questions or things you want to contribute.
It is a conversation group,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, we just, we're streaming, so like we have it on me and Sean because we don't want people to be all paranoid, like, I'm on, focusing on us. But if you hear the voice coming from out and it's not me or Sean
It's probably
or
God.
Paco, it is God. It is the voice of God, and we're having a conversation with it. So let's see, here we go.
Which, of course, since we all kind of are God, it's true. It's
Yep.
also, we have different people in the room.
Yep.
So.
And I see some people are on the live stream. I am monitoring the comments, so if you have
Hi,
something
live
you want to
streamers.
contribute, or if you want to ask a question, feel free to do so in the comments, and we will address that. But anything that you want to bring up now, or should we just keep rolling with talking randomly about what we were talking about before?
Well, the one thought I did have was the topic of, forgiveness and non-judgment when you're actively being attacked and your life, your safety, everything is being threatened by these people who appear
Mhm.
as very dark, and all that goes with it. I also feel a psychic invasion, and I don't know how to.
So one of the biggest things with that kind of stuff is only you can give up your own power. It's it's a place, obviously, when you're going through stuff like that, it's tough, right? I'm not going to say, oh my God, well, you give up your power. Like, it's all your fault. But in reality, when that's happening to you, you have to get to the place where you acknowledge again that you have power. And even though there's been years or a long time
Or
of being
lifetimes.
told that you don't have power, the truth, and I think it comes through in some of Neil Donald Walsh's, or the Conversations with God, I think in the pamphlet I was reading the other day, I was reading the brief
Yep.
synopsis as a catch-up, is like, you are you, and nobody can take away your beingness unless you choose to give it up. So part of working through that is starting to re-acknowledge that you have the potency and you can be bigger than whatever situation or person is attacking you with. It's like, you are an infinite being, you have oneness connection with God, and you can be bigger and greater than all of that, and you can outcreate them. There's stuff that sticks you along the way, and that's when you use the tools, like from Access, you use the guidance from Conversations with God, and you pull from where you can to work through when those blocks come up. It's still really about, though, getting to that place where you're in your own potency and you're creating more and out-creating than the person who's attacking you. Because when you come from a place of higher creation, or you're working from that energy, you're going to out-create, you're greater than whatever they are putting out there. So even if it seems like you won't or you can't and there's blocks, it's like the universe will have your back, and just keep asking questions, keep using the tools and working through it, and it will get there. It may take longer than you may have liked it to take to get there. It will happen, though, if you keep that conscious connection and asking for greater and asking for more.
And it doesn't have to take a long time.
Right.
One of the things, like I have
Thank you.
some
No,
clients.
it does not have to take a long time.
Well, but here, some people run into issues when it comes to healing work with anything. That it took you, however old you are, like if you're 50 years old and it took you 50 years to get to the point where you are, where you're really starting to heal, right? And we had the point of view, well, if it took me 50 years to get here, I need to spend 50 years fixing myself. And a lot of people come into healing work like that, where really that change could be instantaneous in
Yeah.
a handshake. But we
And
put so much weight and value on our story.
Yeah,
That-
and I distinctly
Mhm.
recall a section in Conversations with God.
Well,
that
you're
we-
good at looping
we-
this back in.
We
now.
had a meeting the one night, and there's literally a section in CWG where Neil asked, like, well, why can't I just, be part of the divine? Is basically what Neil asked, and God basically comes back with, well, you could be. You're not willing, or not at the place that you're willing to have it, though. He's like, God basically says you could tap right into it and you could become one with the consciousness instantly, but you're not really willing to have that, so you're not. So God basically acknowledges, like, yes, it's there. You can tap right into the consciousness and the change, and if you're willing to have it, then take it. Like, do it. It's just that a lot of times, in truth, are we really willing to have the totality of what it being one with God and the universe really is, which is covered in the entire trilogy of CWG.
And there's a concept too, like core beliefs, or maybe there's a different statement, but where Neil actually told a story in class once, because I met him a couple times, once in Baltimore for a Happier Than God workshop. And Happier Than God, if you haven't read the book, it's all about what he calls the mechanism of manifestation, and it gives 5 distinct things of how you actually manifest and actualize in your life. It's not just a law of attraction. There's 5 distinct components to it.
I've got it.
Right.
I had that book.
Yeah, that book is a great little book. But in the story that he was saying, it was about this guy who was like the head of his church, and he was like the big usher, and he read in the Bible where if you have faith so much as a mustard seed, you can move mountains, right? So he goes out to his patio.
Always mustard seeds.
And he sits in the chair, and he's looking at the mountains, because lives out in Montana. He sees the mountains there, and he's like, mountain, move. And he's just sitting there for like a day, falls asleep in the chair, wakes up, continuously saying, mountain, move. And at the end, he goes, just as I thought. So there's a difference between conceptual knowing, like we all know that we have the oneness, versus the experiential component. And through tools like whether you're doing bars or if you're doing meditation, whatever the tools are, for you to start getting back in sync and become congruent with the totality of your being, that's where you start to have those experiences, and it goes from conceptual knowing to you've had this experience of oneness, that now everything in your life starts to be a co-creation. And instead of having relationships with things, which is part of the duality, we have to have relationships in order to have a contextual field about what this experience means, versus a creationship. From the place of creationship.
So how many people have gotten stuck with the relationship, being in a relationship with a person or somebody or a object, like your house maybe? Like, how many relationships do you build? And that is like the number one sticking thing that we have. Whereas when we come from creationship, it's about creating something greater. And how many of our relationships are really about creating something greater?
Right. I use my wife and myself as an example. Like, a lot of times relationships is like you need to sacrifice in order to make it work, or for the other person. And we don't have that point of view at all. It's like we empower each other.
This give and take.
Right. There's no give and take. It's we set an allowance to empower the other person to do whatever they are looking to do. Like, she is really big into music. We make it possible for her to do her orchestra things and rehearsals and her recitals and things of that nature, and I do all this, and we have a lot of allowance around that, versus well, you need to you can't do that, you need to be home for the kids and blah blah blah, because I wouldn't be here right now if we had a relationship. We have a creationship where she's actually been to these meetings before, pre-kids. You know, she was at the very first CWG meeting ever with me when we started on the east side. And she started it with me, and then as things evolved, it's like she has certain things that are important for her, and I have things that are important for me, and instead of sacrificing things to not do those things, we empower each other. And that's what you can have with everything, not just partners in life, but with, like, Sean and I have a creationship where we're doing this together and Power Possibilities. And it's not
second Tuesday of every month.
Second Tuesday of every month. Shameless plug, right? Which is also similar to Conversations with God, but even more all over the place. So it's fun.
I think it's all part of our conscious conversation.
Right. In fact, we meeting instead of Conversations with God, Conversations with Consciousness.
Maybe it's just the conscious conversation series, and
there we
go. A couple of things included in it.
Maybe. So, like, but this is all an evolution, and that brings to the next point where, when you're in that space, you start asking questions of the universe, with the exception of the question why. Why is the victim question, right?
Yeah, it kind of loops back in on itself when you ask why. It's kind of one of those, like, well, why did this happen to me? Why did this? There's when you ask, like, why did this happen to me? What are you really going to gain from asking a question? Like, what greater possibilities? You gain a lot.
The universe says,
well,
this is why. And you're like, why is this happening?
And it keeps showing. That's what it is. Yeah, it keeps showing up. Why is this happening? And it's like, because of blah. And then it's the exact same, like Hank said. Whereas if you ask a different question, like, what else is possible? Access tool. Just saying. What else is possible? Then the universe can't wait to show you what else is possible with that situation, right? Instead of asking why, and then the universe has to say, well, here you go for the 50th time.
something
thousandth
like that.
time, millionth time. I mean, we've been around a long time, so
And a similar energy to that is when you put yourself in the space where you ask, like, I want to understand somebody. This is especially true with parents. Like, if I want to understand why my parents are a certain way, then I'm putting myself in the energy of recreating in my own reality the same scenario where they made the choices they made. And now it's like, oh my gosh, I'm doing the same thing my parents did. Well, of course, because I told the universe I wanted to understand them.
Yeah.
And now I'm creating the same
Holy
scenarios.
cow.
Right.
which if we go to the interesting point of view tool, also access that we brought up earlier, it's like, what if your parents, like, why they did whatever they did was just an interesting point of view? Like, oh yeah, my parents, like, made me eat at exactly 12:05 every day, and it had to be these three food groups, right? And it's like, oh, interesting point of view they had, that was the way to raise a kid. Like, what could I choose? Like,
And one of the biggest CWG tools, which goes in line with Access, instead of, in order to be something, you need to do something, right? In order to be happy, I need to understand this. So like you're putting something outside of you, where they say it's what you're being first. And Access says the same thing.
Mhm.
What energy could I be to create something different here?
yeah,
CWG, what could I be? And once, like, my little synopsis for things is, source is all there is all at once in the ever-present moment of now. All I have to do is choose who I'm going to be in creationship to the perceived reality, and then the universe delivers the opportunity to express that beingness through doing.
yeah.
But the being starts first, our own way, and allow ourselves to be that divine infinite being that we
Well,
truly be.
Yeah, CWG lays it out as where we usually operate from is the have, do, be reality, where it's like, once I have money and have a house and have a car, I can do this thing called, like,
Be secure.
be secure. Yeah, and it
Yeah,
ends up like I end up being secure,
Yeah.
where it's really like, if you start from the place where, if I start like I be secure, like, you come from a place of you're already being secure, you can go out and do things and then
Right.
have security. It's a lot more eloquent in the Cliff Notes version.
Cliff
than-
Notes version. I can read the Cliff Notes version.
Yeah, we could probably read
So,
the Cliff
this is
Notes
from-
version.
And I don't know where I got this, but I found this like amazing, like 20-page thing where it's like the
We could like
first.
have copies of that.
We-
Pretty.
It would be
pretty
really
powerful.
good for people, but but they have the be do have paradigm, which is a way of looking at life. It is nothing more or less than that. Yet this way of looking at life could change your life, and probably will, because what is true about the paradigm is that most people have it backward. And when they finally get it straightened out and start looking at it frontward, everything in their life shifts. Most people I know I did start out with the understanding that how life worked was this: have, do, be. That is, when I have the right stuff, I can do the right things, and I can get. When I have good grades, I can do the thing they call graduate, and I can be the thing they called employable. Might be one example. Another one is when I have enough money, I can do the thing they call buy a house, and I can be the thing they call secure. Let's see where I want to jump to. Or should I just read it all?
Skip to the B part.
That's what I was looking for. Am I on the next page? No.
I think it's on the back of the first page, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, but then Neil says, then I had the conversation with God experience and everything changed. God told me that I was starting out in the wrong place, that what I needed to do was begin where I thought I was going to go. All creation starts from a place of being. God said, and I have it all in the reverse. The trick in life is not to get to be happy or be secure or whatever, but start out being happy or being content or of whatever, and then go from there the living of our daily lives. Make sense? Or should I read the rest part? Or I can let you read.
Well, I think
part
you
of it.
good. I think we'll go on. So the gist of it, and I just skipped down to the paragraph. It's when you come from a state of being, you need to have nothing in order to begin the process. You simply select, quite arbitrarily, a state of being, happy, for example, and then come from that place in everything you think, say, and do. But because you're already thinking, saying, and doing only what a person who is being happy, contented, or whatever thinks, says, and does, the things that a happy or contented person winds up having to come to you automatically. So when you come from a place of being happy in everything you do and think and say, it starts to get into the law of attraction where you're going to do and have the things that a happy person has because you already are happy. So it's kind of the starting place of, if you start by being what you'd like to have, it has to come to you. You're taking that whole, I have to do this to this to this in order to get to that. It's like, no, just start with this, and then you'll just notice the backwards effect where it's like, then you start to be able to do the things that happy people do because you're already a happy person. It's like, it's so simple.
One of the tricks too, well, there's also a difference between manifesting from one-ality versus duality, but that could be a whole separate class, I suppose. But where I was going with that is, where was I going with that? Let me pull back the thought, Hank. Pull back the thought. So like one of the point of view creates your reality. And so if you're putting out to the universe that you're choosing abundance, one thing that you could do to shift your point of view to realize that you're already abundant, for example, is go volunteer at a soup shelter. And when you see people that may not have as much abundance as you, and it shifts your point of view, it can sometimes help with that energy of beingness. If you can shift where you're like, because you already are abundant.
Well,
in all
one of
these
the
things.
important things to have in the process, say you ask for abundance or you ask for a change in your life, the universe likes it when you acknowledge that, right? When you finally acknowledge, like, you look at something again, it's like, I asked for that change, and you know what? Things have changed, and once you acknowledge it, you get this new sense of, like, the universe is working, and it's working, and it has my back. Like, I ask for things, and the universe does bring it to you. You just have to have some amount of willingness to acknowledge, and the awareness to, like, sometimes look at a situation like Hank was saying, like, maybe you go to the soup kitchen and maybe that you were somebody in line needing to get food from a soup kitchen because you were in that place of not having enough food on the table, and then you ask for that to change, and then you can get a whole new perspective of, like, wow, like, I asked to not have to go through this anymore, and it's like, now I have enough food on my table. Like, it's just a different way. When you change your perspective, it does create it creates your reality. So it's all about how you're looking at what perspective you're taking about things.
If we talk about happier than God, and this is functioning from duality. So let me preface it with that, because I don't believe that the opposite needs to show up in your life. But if you're truly functioning that you are apart from everything else, one of the rules of the duality is that if you put out that you're going to be abundant, the opposite shows up first. So the first is statement of intent. The second item in happier than God is the law of opposites. And when the opposite shows up, you reaffirm to the universe, you move through it, and that you're choosing it. But I would say that you don't have to have the opposite show up at all. If you can be from that place of one-ality, you just declare your will to the universe and it shows up. And there's no question about it. But if you are locked into that duality place, one of the tools would be, if you're asking for peace in a relationship and it seems really chaotic, you acknowledge the universe. Thank you for this contextual field that I can then know experientially the smooth relationship once it shows up. Because in the duality, it's all about creating context, so you have this contrast, even though it's all one, and you don't need that. So depending where someone's functioning from, you could work from either place. So if you're watching the video, if you're finding that you put out, I want to meet Mr. or Mrs. Right, and the worst person you ever could imagine shows up, it might be that you're creating from the duality instead of the one-ality. And if you can take a pause and really become the vibration of that smooth relationship, now you're functioning from one-ality, because the greatest truths of the universe are paradoxes. Birds of a feather flock together is a one-ality truth. Opposites attract is a duality truth. Both are true, and you can create from either one. The question is, what space can you be in when you're creating? And if you can be in that place of totality of oneness, everything goes so much easier, and you don't have to have the opposite thing show up in your life.
Yeah. So I think maybe we could pause for a bit.
Pause.
Ask how everybody's doing. We covered a lot there.
Yeah, that's only 24 minutes, and we have covered all the books.
Not
No.
you.
Yeah. No, come back. Please come back next one.
Yeah, we got to say some stuff for next time. No, but we'll give people who are online, if you're online, take this opportunity. I'm going to refresh because I don't even know if I'm seeing questions, if questions are being asked. or comment. If you have something you want to contribute, we can read those. But talk to us. Is there anything that you would like us to touch on, or you want to contribute, or questions that you want to ask? Now's a great time to do that. Let's see. How you doing?
Lots to digest there for sure. Great stuff. Yeah, so for me it's kind of back to the basics first, because right now I'm in a low frequency and kind of feel this, real stuck energy. And
So let's ask a question, like, would you like to change that?
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So what could we do or be to, kind of give you some tools, or what could you do and be to change that? Make a question of it. Because
Well,
you're acknowledging where you're at, which is great to start, that you're acknowledging where you are. So go ahead.
yeah, because there have been some synchronicities in my life that have sometimes made me feel like once I start writing and blogging and writing books about my life, my story, and my insights, hopefully, that I've gained, then I'll be able to really get a whole new life for myself, because I sense that I need all new people, like, mostly. And that's a really weird place to be. So
So what would it be like if you just woke up tomorrow morning and just started writing your story down?
well,
And just had some fun with it and just started writing? Like, what would that be like?
I'm in such a place that I just can't. I'm not that I can't, but I don't know. I just have so much to do. I've got all these legal cases. I was a victim of crime many, many times, and it's been a very difficult life in a lot of ways. It's been like beyond difficult. And I've asked the why question a lot, which I'm really glad you explained that.
Yeah.
That doesn't get you anywhere, just like the Moody Blues, that song, The Question. You never get an answer when you're knocking at the door. It just keeps, I guess, manifesting the same conundrum. So,
Or the universe keeps going, I'm giving you your answer. It's right here. I keep giving it to you over and over. You're like, but why isn't he creating what I want to create?
yeah. So,
And usually the loops that we get into with why will shift when you get so sick and tired of being sick and tired, is still something they use in AA, that you get to the point where you just, like, a lot of people who get sober, they just get to the point where they say, God help me. It's not a question. It's a declaration of a command or a decree to the universe, and all of a sudden everything changes. So if you can get to the place where you're willing to make that demand of the universe that my life will be easy and full of possibilities, and what energy could I be to facilitate that ease and possibility with the universe?
Yeah.
And from that question, like, see what pops up.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of what we call following the energy. As a healer, I would always say, like, just things would shine to me in my room, like, oh, I need to use that, because I asked the question, what's going to create the greatest change for my client? And then all of a sudden, oh, this tuning fork looks good, oh, this looks good, and you just kind of see what happens. Like, you might be led to eat certain things or buy a certain dress or something. You never know. Like, if it matches the energy that because you did this, now something else is going to happen because someone is noticing you different, or whatever the case is, or the interaction you had with the clerk changes everything because they said the one thing in the way that you really could receive it the best. You say you never know. So you ask a question, then you see what sparks and kind of shines to you.
So it's like when you put it out there and make a demand. When you make a demand of the universe, one of the things we talk about with Access Consciousness, the universe has your back. So if you put it out there, the universe is going to do everything it can to make that happen as quickly as it can. Whether or not we can receive all that,
Well,
another question.
Well, that and the other thing is we keep changing our mind.
We keep changing our
We say,
mind.
universe,
Yeah.
this is what I choose. And the universe says, no problem. I'm going to rearrange all the reality and existence to
And
accommodate
get it
this.
to you as fast as
And
possible.
in 30 seconds later, you made a different choice. And the universe says, okay, great. And it starts to change. And then you make a different choice and it starts to change.
how do we do
So
that?
so
Yeah.
part of it is it's not just declaring your will, but it's being consistent with the space that you're in
I was
with what
getting
you're
there.
Oh, you were about to
I
get
was
there.
going to get there.
Okay, I'll let you.
I really
Sean
was
get
going to
there.
get there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Cool.
I was going to say it's about being congruent.
Oh
with,
yes, and I love that word congruent.
with
Usually
what
I
your
throw that
ask
word
is.
out.
So like, say you ask for, oh man, I didn't even know. What am I asking for, Hank? With these examples are where I always get tripped up. I'm like, it's just that thing where like you do the thing and then you just
Well-
follow it.
Well, like 90%
And I'm
of
like,
what
I don't
we're
know if that's going to relate to people.
90% of what we're asking the universe for, demanding, is subconscious. Like you don't even realize that you're putting it out to the universe. And actions speak louder than words. So one thing would be like, say, hey, I want to be the thing they call healthy. But you go to McDonald's and get chicken McNuggets. Not to say that those aren't healthy, but if you're putting out to the universe one thing, but your actions are saying something different, congruency is aligning everything that you're doing, from your intention to your choices to your actions to your thoughts, to follow in line with what it is that you're looking to bring into your life. I want a different relationship, but I'm doing everything I can to stay in the one that I'm in, for example. Or how many times have you had someone come to you? I know you don't do readings, but people will say, "Do you see me in a new job?" And then you already know. Have you even looked done a resume? No, like they're not even looking. It's like, so you're saying one thing, and the universe says, "Cool, I'll get to it," but without you playing your part,
Yeah.
being congruent, it's gonna take me about 6 months to line up a layoff. So no worries.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about asking and being congruent with your ask, great access consciousness facilitator Brendan Watt, great facilitator, and one of the things he's really good at, he's very good at acknowledging where he is. So one of the things is I just vividly remember him going like, like, I'd like to change this, and then 10 seconds later him turning around and going, who am I kidding? No, I'm not. Like, so when you ask you've got to be willing to actually make the change you ask for. So like if you ask for it and then like when you really look at it and go, am I really ready to change this? And sometimes the answer is like no. Like if you're asking for, man, I'd really like to be the energy of $1 billion and to be a billionaire, and then you start to really think about, well, if I have $1 billion, like I'm gonna have all these people asking for money, and I'm gonna have to deal with all these finances and do all this stuff. It's like, do I really want all that right now? And then it's like sometimes the answer is like no, but then sometimes the answer is yes, and then it's like, okay, go with that then. If you look at it and go, yes, I'm actually ready to change it, follow through. There are times when we put that demand out and it's just like, if you really look at it and take another 10 seconds or 20 seconds to look at it, it's like, well, maybe I'm not quite ready to change that part. That's a little too much right now. I'll start with something different. Because that's where we can get hung up in we keep choosing something different, or we start to get into the idea that the universe isn't abundant and that we can't change. It's that we aren't really willing to have the change. So even though we verbalize that we are, our actions and our
Right.
true intention behind that ask is like the energy is actually not really of change. It's just sort of distracting yourself to say, well, I keep asking for it, but it just doesn't keep showing up. So the universe must not be on my side. It's like, well, no, you're just not really willing to have the change. Like energetically, you're not actually asking for it.
And a lot of times that comes down to people wanting to not suffer. Like I have a lot of people who have medical conditions, and really what they're looking for is they don't want to suffer from the condition, but the actual thing that's causing the condition, they have no interest in changing. Like I have family members who, being diabetic, they still continue to drink and they have all these health complications, but they want to be better. Really, they just don't want to suffer anymore, but they want to keep doing what they're doing. So, and what is it that you love
Isn't
about
that crazy?
Isn't it?
That's like insane.
It is insane. but I'm cool with that. I do not want
It's
to.
fine.
I don't
It's
want to
just like-
understand why they're doing it. Is that I'm creating
Yeah,
for myself?
right.
But hopefully you can see the non-congruency with those things, where it's like, you're saying that, but then you go and drink way more than you really
So God helps
should
those who
drink.
help themselves, kind of thing.
Well, the
A
universe,
little bit.
when it's thought, word, and deed, is part of it, and then also being aligned, body, mind, and spirit. So like you're being aligned in the totality of your being, and then you're also being aligned with the totality of your actions, which is everything from thought forms to what you're physically doing with the Waldo we call the body.
Yeah. And again, though, the changes you ask for, if you're really willing to receive it and have it, they happen instantly. Like
Yeah.
the universe can deliver that fast. It's
'Cause-
just where are you at, and are you willing to really change and receive that change?
Yeah.
And if you are, then
And I know people with addictions don't, because I've been sober for
Yeah.
12 years ish. I forget. It's been a long time. Since March of '06, I think, was my sobriety date. And I have been trying to quit. Like, trying means you're embellishing. You're not really trying to do anything. You're just embellishing what you're doing more.
Remember
trying to
Yoda,
stop.
try, what is it?
Do
or
or
do
not.
not. There is no
There is
try.
no try. But there was one day where I had that same thing where I was like, something, it must change. And it was that day, like, I basically cold turkey, and I started actually choosing to be better and doing different actions where I wasn't going back and drinking more, because I finally got to the point where I was so sick and tired of being sick and tired, but I really did desire the change, and I was able to make that declaration and then follow through congruently ever since, and everything changed.
So I can,
They call those moments of clarity.
Yeah.
You have these moments of congruency where you have this knowing, because that's what it is. It's not you trying to rationalize what you would like to change. It's just knowing from a place of pure being that this is what I want. Not want, bad word. This is what I choose.
this is what I'm having.
And this is what I'm having. This is what I am willing to receive right now from the universe. And the universe says, here you go, virtually instantly.
and it
it's
just
done.
helps you along the way. It's like you put that out there, then it's just like, it just the whole move away from college, break with girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. And I spent like 2 years, and I was in the dorms, and I was totally doing what young, silly college folks do, right? A lot of drinking, doing drugs, yada, yada, yada. Grades were terrible, and this is like an honors high school student. I took like, honors calculus and math. Like, I mean, very, in my, I'm like, I should be doing great in school. What is going on? And then it was really all this other extracurricular stuff that was in the way. And finally, I was going into my junior year, and I'm like looking at housing on site at campus, going back for another year, and I'm like, you know what? No, I'm done with this. So it was at that point I decided to pack it up, move back home, go to school locally, and made that change happen. And things were right where I knew I could be with, I was back in school, grades were back up, graduated with like honors from scout class, but I had to make that choice to say, this thing that's not working, I'm changing it now. And I think I had my transfer application done in like an hour. I mean, I was like, I'm done with this. Like, it is time to like get back on track. So when you put that intention out, it's amazing how quickly it can change. Now, in some cases, like in your case where you've got like court proceedings and stuff, like that stuff just has to play out over the course.
But I had the similar thing. I didn't care about, well, I always got A's on the tests, but I never did any homework. So I would have like C's and D's. And then I found out senior year that you got a discount in car insurance if you had like a certain GPA.
Right, I remember that now.
And so I went from like that to a straight A's. Like, I had the ability to and the capacity to, but it wasn't until I was aligned and actually being congruent with everything that it actualized for me. But it was always there as a potential. I just didn't choose it. All I had to do is choose it, and there you go. But I couldn't quite pull up my average enough before to get the discount.
To get the discount?
No, didn't do it. That
Well,
was close.
I don't know. I've set the intention for sobriety many times. I've been using marijuana on a regular basis.
Allegedly. Okay. Because we're
Stop
recording.
it.
Allegedly.
Oh,
No, I'm
right.
kidding. No, they
Oh.
don't know who you are anyway.
I have to really get used to the access bars and the consciousness. Is that or the lingo?
I'm not even sure. I
I
think
mean,
Hank was making some
I
No,
speak to the
joke.
universe.
I was
right?
making a joke because we're live streaming it, so in case we're saying allegedly.
Oh, we are. Okay.
Yeah,
alleged use of
I
marijuana.
wasn't sure. Okay, right, alleged.
Allegedly.
Anyways, I didn't realize we were recording again. I didn't know.
No,
we
the
were-
whole thing. As long as the light's red, we're recording.
Right, okay, got it. So, anyway, but, I also have this nicotine addiction too. But that's a side issue. I haven't been able to break free of anything really.
Mhm.
And I've tried, but.
Well, Access, I know the Access tools, the founders, Gary Douglas and Dr. Dean here, they cover a lot of stuff. They cover a lot of tough topics in their work, one of them being addiction. So it may be something to look more into is finding an Access facilitator or, Ryan, myself, Hank, and taking a deeper dive personally into like what's really behind all that. And if we can assist you or you can get clear of that sometimes the addiction isn't really about It's usually something underneath that it's about. It's not really that.
What am I aware of that I'm not willing
Yeah.
to acknowledge?
That can be it
That's
too.
right.
Sometimes we have an awareness we're not really willing
That's right.
to deal with.
And for me with the
or
drinking,
willing to have.
I am a wide open intuitive. I have been since I was born, and as soon as I could legally drink, I started medicating that. And it was for me. It didn't really help ultimately, but I was doing it because I just didn't want to be aware of everything that I was aware of. And then once I got sober, then I started learning tools from mediumship at Lilydale, access, shamanism, all kinds of different tools to be aware of everything I'm aware of, but not having a point of view about it and being able to just flow with it instead of being a victim to it. And that's where, again, Black Elk Speaks. I love that book, where he talks about he's but a hollow bone, because I asked him, how are you able to work with so many people and never take on their stuff? And he said, I'm but a hollow bone. Everything moves through me to creator or from creator, but never to me. And that's the kind of the idea of whether you're, as an intuitive, as an empath, as a being, a divine being, you're always in the flow of things, never being the victim to it.
That's great.
Just being an
Great
allowance.
visual, yeah.
I like it.
That was good.
What was it like to be an intuitive before you learned how to deal with everything that was coming in? You know, what kind of experience?
I was fine until like high school, middle school, I think. Like I just had a calmness to me that even though my family situation was kind of violent and everything, I was just had a cloak from it that it didn't really faze me, and I just went with it. But when I started getting to the age where I was putting other people's points of view as more important than my own, and because you have all your friends, peer pressure and all that, acceptance and all, and like you're caring more about those things. Like that's where I started going kind of out of balance or out of whack, if you will.
Yeah, you start to take on those other people's points of view. Like, wow, dude, your family situation's really messed up. Like, you must, be like, screwed up too, and blah blah blah. And at the end of the real truth for you was probably that it didn't bother you at all.
And the other thing is, as an intuitive, like if people really get that you're intuitive and they kind of have a knowing that you know, then they will do stuff to get you to go away because they don't want that vulnerability. It's just like with something in hindsight that I think happened a lot, because you could say something like, I had one lady once where they were thinking about getting a reading from me, and she's like, well, just tell me one thing, and I rattled off something. She's like, oh, we're not ready for you yet.
Yeah.
And so like I was aware of things that they didn't want to go where I could have gone.
Right.
So I think that's part of it too, as being an intuitive. Like people kind of pick up on that, and then it's like, well, we don't want anything to do with this guy.
Well, then you think, and then you can turn on yourself and say, "Oh my God, I'm so wrong for knowing that." And it's like,
or now I don't want to know that, and you start developing
I can't know
stuff
that
like
because
drinking.
now this person won't like me, and blah blah blah. I won't be, accepted into peer groups, and it just starts to
Yeah. But the question you start asking, like when my aunt had come to me for one of my practice healings, and while I was working on her, I picked up like she had a really serious health condition. And the old me would have been like, oh, I don't even want to know. But the question then is like, well, now that I know this, what could I do with it?
Right.
Like, what possibility could I create? And I just told her, I think you kind of sometimes take care of your car more than you do yourself, and maybe it's time to get checked out, And they found the cancer, and they were able to prolong her life a lot.
Oh.
But instead of like having shields up and saying, I'm not willing to look at this, I'm very open to like, what can I look at? And then it's not about, it's like, what possibility could I create with it?
That's a great question. Yeah.
questions always.
Questions, except for why. Don't ask why.
No. Right.
Why don't we ask why? No.
Don't ask
No.
But there's 5 little trick words and that go, well, why is one of the things you avoid. That one of the other ones we talked about tonight already is try, because it means you're not going to do it. If someone says, are you going to make them private? Well, I'll try. It means no, they're not. They're just being polite about it, or they think they are. And then but, it linguistically negates everything you said up until that point. We're like, oh, your hair looks lovely today, but like then everybody knows you don't really
But
like
the
it.
real truth is, I don't like it, and I think you
Right.
look terrible.
And then here's another one, a real takeaway for you would be the word need, because as an infinite being, if everything is just all one, is there anything an infinite being truly needs?
I thought the word was want.
Want is the 5th one.
Oh.
Want, need, try, but, and why.
Okay.
Want the energy behind the word want literally means to lack. So like in 1940 something, they changed all the dictionary definitions. But like if you say I want money, energetically you're actually saying I lack money.
I like to think of it like the British talk, like they talk about like, oh, we have a want for better politics, or something like,
Yeah.
or like that's a bad example I gave, or poor example, but I always think the British use the word like want a lot more towards the actual energy of it, like, oh, he has a want for
Right.
something, and they use it in terms of like he doesn't have something, like
Right.
they're
Or my
Or-
wife does translations,
or
and
change
if she
or
was
Latin.
translating like I want to eat, that or she would translate it in German as I have hunger, for example. It's not saying I lack food. So like or ich möchte would be I would like Geld, money. It's not. She wouldn't translate it like I lack money. She would say we're using want interchangeably with the word desire. The desire is still putting it not in the ever present moment. It's putting it off somewhere else. But we use it interchangeably. But the real energy behind want is lack. So if you say I don't want money, I don't want money, I don't want money, you're actually saying to the universe, I don't lack money, I don't lack money, I don't lack money. And ironically, that would create more abundance in your life than saying I want money, because the universe will say you lack money, no problem. Here you go. Here's more lack, because the universe doesn't understand language; it understands energy. And if you're putting out I lack money, it will continue to give you lack. But if you're putting out I don't lack money, it will continue to give you abundance. It's kind of weird.
It is weird.
I know, and everything I've been told, it doesn't sound anything
I
like
know.
that. Like, what is this
My
green
brain
stuff?
feels like mashed potatoes now.
And one of the best things to do is to take it into your own day-to-day life and see what shows up. If you start using don't want where you think you're supposed to, normally what it said want, it's like, what if I say I don't want that? It's like, maybe that'll actually show up then.
Or you
and
ask
one
the
of the best
question,
things
too.
is to just use it yourself and play with it,
Yeah.
and see what it creates.
How about if I say thank you for, thank you for my ability to pay every bill and expense that
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can acknowledge that.
I don't know how to
Yeah.
say it.
I think in the How to Become Money workbook from Access, they talk about like when you write your bills, like you are in the place of like I'm so abundant, I have this money to pay the bills. And as you put the money out, you tell it your job is to go out and bring me 10 times the amount. Right? So you're like actually telling your money, this is your job. You're going to go get me more money. So you're paying your bill, and
Yeah.
you're saying your job is to go do this.
And
Yeah.
it's funny, money actually
It's
attracts
great.
more money. It's especially when you
Talk
ask
to
it
your
to.
money.
It can't wait to go and attract more money to itself.
Yeah, go do it, George.
But then-
Not George. I mean, we need
Yeah.
bigger dollar bills.
And also
Yeah,
taking
we
the-
want some Benjamins.
Right.
Taking the word money back and just replacing it with abundance, it's also about to the universe when you're looking for abundance in your life that you're willing to receive it in ways other than money. Because how often do we handcuff the universe because we're only willing to receive something one certain way, and now all of a sudden it cuts off the million different ways it could have happened because you're waiting for one way.
Yeah, that might be a topic for like next week though. That's a pretty
Yes.
deep one.
Yeah,
It's a pretty big one.
I think we talked about it last
Okay.
time too a little bit.
We might have. That's definitely a big one.
Yeah,
We can
because that could be a whole
jump into
whole
later.
thing just by itself.
Yeah, that could be like a whole night.
Cool. All 9 people are quiet today. Nobody's asking questions, or I don't know how to see them. I don't know which one.
It's probably the latter. You've probably asked like 100 questions and we have no idea. Sorry.
That's why you should come in person so you can advocate for yourself. And yeah, cool. What
That's
else?
right.
How we doing?
We're at 48 minutes, 50-ish minutes. I know Magic
good.
Mike's on the line now, so Mike, if you're there, you can like message me a question if you can't comment for some reason, or I'm not seeing them. I don't know which.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, I was just going to take the minute to just talk, I know for me, anything that I talk about in the conversation, especially tools and stuff, you don't have to buy any of it. If you like it and want to take it and use it, then go for it. But if you're like, this is hogwash, please consider it hogwash or just, don't use it. Like, I won't claim to be all-knowing or potent or that you have to follow everything I say. So, like, if you like something, then take it. If you don't, then just leave it. I just want to put that out there to everybody, at least for what I talk about. And probably Hank, too.
Me
but-
too. Yeah. One of my teachers, Elaine Thomas at Fellowship, she would always say, take the best and leave the rest.
Right, totally.
Or my friend, did I ever tell you about, I think I've talked about Param before with you. There's
Probably.
there's a professor at Baldwin Wallace, and his name is Param, and he has this amazing
No names,
workshop.
please.
What?
No.
But his workshop, it's called Why Life Sucks, The Global Voyage to Overcome the Misery of Everyday Living. And it's really esoteric. It's based on the works of Osho. But at the very beginning of class, he has everybody slam their hand on the table, point their finger at him, and say, Param, you don't know your ass from a hole in the ground. And the reason he does it is he says that, well, if I say something you don't agree with, now you already got it out of your system that I don't know my ass from a hole in the ground, and you can get past that and listen to the other things that you can accept or receive. So it's just like take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And yeah, no one can make you do anything. That's the cool thing about being an infinite being.
Yeah. And especially when we start jumping around like to all these different topics and spaces, it's like, even take what you could hear even, right? Like
Well, the
there's
cool
nothing
thing
that
is,
says you have to take everything right away or get everything that we talk
I'm gonna
about
need repetition
off the bat.
of
Take the few things that you really
Yeah.
caught the most and take those, and then come back next month and we can have more conversation.
and the fun thing too is since we did record it, if you go to the Cleveland Conversations with God Facebook group, it's there, and
That's great.
and you can rewatch it.
That's it. I
the
want
rewatch.
to do that. Yeah, that would be good.
You want to do that? Oh no, that means she's
Oh,
not
no.
gonna do
She
it.
doesn't want to do
Okay.
that.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I have to watch.
No, but I use that with my kids all the time because I would tell them the opposite. Oh no, don't choose that, and then they choose it. So like if whatever I want them to do, I tell them to do the opposite, and it works a lot of times. Except for my one son that gets a little bit more aware, and he's like, "Yeah, you don't really want me to do that, Daddy."
Well, it's because he knows you're manipulating him.
I know.
He's aware of the
He's so good at it.
manipulation, and then he chooses to outcreate it and say, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I know you're trying to manipulate me."
Yep. Well, sometimes I kind of call myself out because I would manipulate him, and then I would say, "Now, why did you let me do that?" And I would show him what I did. He's like, "Oh, But I want him to be aware of that going through because manipulation is it's not a bad thing. It means a skillful handling of an energy. But sometimes when you're doing it to be selfish, meaning you're doing something for yourself at the expense of someone else, that's selfishness versus self first, which is just advocating for yourself. So manipulation from the space of self first is no problem. Selfish.
That's a good way of saying.
Maybe not a problem. It depends on your point of view because it's only wrong if you deem it wrong.
Right.
But it's just a difference between the definitions. At least that's my definition. I don't know if it's the real definition. I like
It
making
sounded
stuff
good.
up.
I just can't swallow the concept of being open to a different point of view when it involves, a crime or abuse or something that is, looks evil.
And it's not.
Not judging it as evil. I mean, I can't
It
wrap
just-
my head
Yeah.
around that in the situational minute.
It's kind of like that song From a Distance, There's Only Harmony. Like if you go listen to that song, the energy of that song is what is talking about. From a distance, it's all just is, right? And so from the place of onality, from the place where you have the knowing of everything there is all at once, from that space, it is just experience, which you can label in any way you want, any way you choose. But in the duality, with the polarity of positive and negative vibration, absolutely, you could judge it in one field or the other.
And it's also, I think part of it might be, it's not aligning with their point of view either that it was okay that they did that, because it certainly is not for you. It has not worked well. It's not been great for your beingness, your wonderful beingness. It's more just getting out of the polarity of that what they did was evil. It's like, okay, they did that. Now I know what that is. If I see that, I'm going to run away from it, basically. Like, I don't desire that in my life anymore. And more of that acknowledgement of, yeah, this guy does this, he manipulates, and he's dark, and he makes me try and feel small and manipulate me. It's like, okay, I got it. Like, I'm not agreeing or in aligning, and that, like, that's okay. It's just like, yeah, that's a thing that's out there in the universe, and now I know it's out there. I know what the energy is, and I can say, yeah, if I see that, it's like, no, thank you.
Well, he's
like,
trying to annihilate me. I mean, he wants me
Right.
dead. I mean,
Well,
I know that sounds crazy.
yeah, that's
but-
pretty.
No, I mean,
pretty
I feel
serious,
that. I do.
yeah.
I do. I see evidence, and I feel that. I mean,
Neil once said, like, I think it was after 9/11, he said that if he could get all the world leaders together, or the question that he would ask them is, what hurts you so much you feel you have to hurt me to heal it? And like from that energy, because they're making 100% the right choice for them based on wherever they are. And if an allowance doesn't mean you are agreeing with them or reacting to them. It just means that you're in the space of that's where they are. And I'm going to choose who I'm going to be in creation to that, not relation to that.
Yeah.
And then that's where you can get unlocked, because if you are judging something as wrong, evil, that is the polarity thing. And I give the example, allowance is like the rock in the stream. When you're in allowance, all the energies of life simply move around you, and it doesn't wash you downstream, it doesn't wear you down. But if you align and agree with, what's happening, then you get washed downstream. And if you resist or react to what's happening, you get whittled down to you're so small that you get washed downstream. Allowance is the energy to be just, it doesn't mean you're, condoning it or anything. It just means you're being in the space of that's where they're at. And you're not judging them for it, but I'm going to choose differently.
Yeah, it's
Hopefully
well
that
said.
helps.
Very
Yeah.
well said. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
That's great. I've gotten some real gems from both. Amazing
Oh, you're
stuff.
welcome.
Amazing.
Glad you
I'm
liked
like,
it.
retain it, retain it, retain it. Yes, right. That's it. I mean, I've had moments where I've had higher perspectives on all this. I mean, I've
Mhm.
actually had moments I would call, maybe not as much recently, but last year, in the beginning of the year, I think I had moments of joy where all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm being taught non-attachment, loving without attachment. Okay, what I thought we had has burned to the ground. It's nothing but a pile of ashes now. It never was. But, maybe it's all going to be okay somehow, and this is all, there's an order in this. And I just try to focus on being present in the moment, enjoying everything in front of me, a flower, a cup of tea,
Yeah. When you're in the moment like that, then you're not fragmented. That's where like you have total choice of everything. There's the example where if you're washing the dishes because your wife yells at you if you don't, you're in the past because you're thinking about her yelling at you. And if you're washing the dishes because your TV show is coming on, now you're in the future. You just are there to do what you're doing. And being the highest vibration. Like Neil says, the whole point of it all is to recreate yourself anew, the next grandest version of yourself in every moment. And if you can live that through and access the same thing, choosing in 10-second increments, and how much more can I be of myself today? And if you're staying in that question, then and you keep choosing what feels light with that, you just start this upward spiral of having more and more and more of you as your total being instead of the small component of you that you were taught was separate from everything else.
Well, I've had days where I've been in the flow, where one synchronistic event led to another, and it was just like, geez, this all fits together like a perfect puzzle. The whole day looked that way. But then I've had a blur of other days where I haven't felt that at all. Have you heard of like a bipolar spiritual awakening?
If you're waking up from duality, I could see that.
Yeah.
From the one-ality part, it can be ease all the time. But if you have the point of view and the duality that it goes back and forth between these two things, and that would be your experience. Your point of view creates your reality. And if you can shift your point of view that I can have just ease in my life, then you'll have ease. But if you have the point of view that sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's not, then sometimes you'll have it easy and sometimes you won't. Because it's all about point of view creates your reality. So what can I do to shift my point of view to be in a space where it's going to create more and more ease and possibility? What's our mantra? All of life.
All of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory.
Yep, that's the mantra of Access. Saying it 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening. Just saying that will help put you into the space where all of life is coming to you with ease and joy and glory meaning the exuberant expression of life.
Wow, that's great.
What would it take for you
Go
to
forth.
embody? And the question you can ask every day is, what would it take for me to embody that in my totality of being every day? And just asking that question, and asking the question is what the universe responds to most. And it's not that question of why. It's you're asking what energy could I be, and then you just let that bubble up. And the more often you can ask, and
Well, the ask
every
is
10
like
seconds,
in addition, like it's just more you can do to play with the all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. If you only thing you remember is the all of life comes to me with ease, joy, and glory, and just saying that 10 times, that'll work. It's not like you have to ask like more questions.
You
but
don't.
Thank
But
you.
You might get new
and that
awareness
That's
from
good
it.
that you pointed that out. That helps.
You can start with
I can
just
get overwhelmed really easily.
the all of life
I've
comes
got
to me
a-
with ease, joy, and
See, it's
glory.
not like he's intuitive or anything. That's exactly why he said it.
Yeah, Hank's going with embodiment. How can I embody the potential of greatness of all of life, ease, and joy, and glory in everything I do? And it's like, that's a mouthful, man. That's a mouthful, Hank.
When you try to
Yeah, it is. It is a mouthful.
well, when you're trying to remember stuff from what we're talking about, don't even try to remember the words. Be like, what was the energy around that, and let that come up, because the universe understands energy. Words are a huge limitation.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You know.
true. They're just representation.
Yeah,
Right,
you get
so-
into that energy, and it's like,
so, like,
okay,
oh,
that
yeah.
energy, how can I have
Right.
more of that? I'll have more of that, please, and working from that.
Right. So like if you're having a really good moment and you could just say, ooh, what's that? Yeah,
This.
I'll have
more of this.
more of this, please. Then you're just acknowledging the energy, and all you're telling the universe is, I'm willing to receive this. And it comes down to everything between you and the universe is almost this binary dialogue of heavy and light, where you're just having to receive things that are light for you, and it's going to create more lightness in the life, and not choose the things that are heavy. And it's not a rightness or a wrongness, it's just based on where you're at, what's going to create more lightness in your life, and you choose those things. And it's just very easy binary dialogue. Like, isn't that what computers do, zeros and ones?
Yeah,
Just do
it
zeros
is.
and ones.
Yeah, so that's like the binary of the universe is heavy and light. Because it's no good or bad, it's just what's heavy or light for you. And my teacher in shamanism would say that angel poop, angel heaviness is light for us, and our heaviness is light for someone else. It's all a matter of a perspective, where you're at. But it's not that anything's good or bad, it's just what's heavy or light based on where you are right now. And just keep choosing what's light.
Yeah. So having an active dialogue with the universe. So it's saying that 10 times a day, but you said 20 times a day, right?
I said 10 times in the morning, 10 times at night.
He did say 20.
How do you say it again? I accept life with ease.
No, all of life
All of life
comes to
comes
me
to me
with
with
ease,
ease, joy, and glory.
Yeah, take
All
a
of
picture of
life
it when you
comes
go out.
to
We
me.
have
Yeah,
it stenciled
we have
up.
it on the wall.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I need these right now. Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe we'll film in
Lost
front
some
of
points
the
off
all
my
of life
memory
comes to
last
me with ease,
year,
joy, and glory
too.
next time.
Yeah, we could do that.
That might be
In fact,
cool.
every HHH affiliate should have like their picture with the sling thing in the back. That would be really
we
good.
could do that.
So 10 times in the morning and 10 times in the evening?
Yeah.
Or as often as you think about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And you hear stories where if you write it down and stick it on your bathroom mirror or in your car, like where you'll see it, it's just a reminder. Put it on the fridge or something.
That's great.
If you want to throw some magic into it, you just get a candle, 7-day
Perfect.
candle. You write on it a piece of paper, and who do we call it, a petition candle. You put it under the candle, and then for a little bit each day, you light the candle, and you're just sitting with it, and you're letting that be a physical representation of your intention. And so every time you're doing it, you're being fully present with actualizing that in your life. It has nothing to do with magic or the candle. It has to do with you're setting aside a time, and you're in that energy. And that's what the universe is recognizing, that you're in this space, and then it's going to deliver more to you. So that's just like a little bit of
You
how
could choose that.
magic works. If you wanted to put a little bit of magic
I do.
component to it, yeah.
I was just thinking about that today or yesterday. I think even today, I was thinking I've got to come up with a way to cut all these cords to all these people who have been damaging me, have not been serving my. It doesn't. At least that's the perspective I have
So
right now. But maybe later I'll have a whole different perspective and see how these experiences serve.
yeah, and I think you kind of said, I gotta find a way. There's no question there. What if it was like, how can I easily find new people that'll actually be supportive of me rather than destructive? And make that the question so that you can start to get the possibility. So that's when we say asking the question, right? It's looking at stuff like when you make that statement, there's nothing else that can be other than the statement. But when you turn it into a question, then it can change. Or it's easier to change it.
And science even supports this. There's a difference between the affirmation and the affirmation. If you say, I am a divine being, brain doesn't light up much on topographical brain mapping. But if you say, how is it I love being a divine being? It's like, because when you ask the question to the universe, it's just going to show you now.
Yeah.
It's not
And
a statement, it's a declaration.
Yeah,
really.
and it's not making a wrongness of like when you go to a statement. It's more of the getting to the awareness of when you're making statements rather than asking a question is really what it's about. It's not like, oh my God, I made a statement, I'm terrible. Oh, I was so bad. It's just like, oh, okay, that was a statement. Like, okay, let me make that a question this time and see actually what can show up. So it's more about getting into that energy of getting used to asking questions rather than coming from that place of statements and stuff. I know that's something I had to change a lot in my life, was like I came from that statement place and then like having to remind myself like, wait, Sean, you can ask a question and it will probably actually change. And I'm like, oh yeah, what if I just ask what else is possible? And then it's like, and then something shows up, or I immediately jump to like a different possibility. I'm like, oh, like all I had to do was ask a question, like, and I kind of laugh at myself afterwards.
Or
Like,
another example in the duality, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. I worked in banking for years, took tons of phone calls, and when a client called in who was like, you need to waive my late fee, for example, my immediate reaction was, nope, no way. But if someone calls in and asks a question, what else is possible here? I got billed this late fee. Is there any opportunity to change this? Like, people react differently. So next time you need to go up to a customer service desk somewhere, or I did this in SeaWorld when we were in Florida. Instead of saying you need to do this, I said, well, what else is possible? And the next thing you knew, my problem was resolved. Instead of saying you have to do this and you have to do that, because people's intention or their initial reaction is to fight it. Because you don't want to tell me what to do. No.
Of course not.
Right.
Right.
That goes back from kids. Mom, you told me to do this, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So, like, it's just a fundamental thing that's ingrained. So, starting to
Approach.
ask, what else is possible? That's, like, such a life-changing question.
WEIP.
WAIP, hashtag. That's one of the access tools.
It's an
So,
access
like, the
tool.
3 to really take away from today is the mantra, how does life get any better than this?
Well, the mantra is all of life comes in with these.
Oh, wait. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, but then something else came out.
We
But
didn't even
that's the
talk
second
about
thing.
how does it get any better. So
Okay, well,
maybe what else is possible?
what else is possible? Like, just asking that question, because it's also open-ended. So, like, it's not like saying, can you do this for me, yes or no? You're asking somebody, what else is possible here? You're asking the universe, what
Yeah.
else is possible here?
Yeah, when the the universe, a yes or no question, it's kind of a smart ass. It's kind of like, yes, I can do that. But it's like, you're not asking me to actually do that. You're just asking, can I do it? And the universe is like, yeah, sure. You gonna ask for it, or are you just gonna...
I never thought of that. That's really good. Can I do it? I don't know. Can you? That's kind of like the... Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, so when you ask the question like, what else is possible, then it's like, okay, let me show you how else is possible, rather than like, universe is something else possible. The universe is like, yeah, there's a lot else possible, but you gotta ask.
But you're asking, when you say that, the universe, show me what else is possible here. Show me what else is possible here. What else is
What else is
possible?
possible?
Do I need to put in there, show me what else is possible?
don't have to.
That's
No.
good for me, or that feels good, or
If
that
you'd
I
like to ask it that way, you can. It's really the energy of the question.
What else is
that
possible
counts.
that will create lightness and ease in my life and possibility? If you want to flavor it out.
Yeah, if you want to get fun and spicy with it, you can, or just leave it.
because it's
short
the
and
energy
sweet.
behind the
Wording.
question. Your intention
Yeah.
with asking that question is not show me how bad it can get.
Yeah.
And watch that, because some people, like, how often have you heard people argue about who has it worse? Like, really? Like, you're arguing about who has life worse instead of asking how does it get any better, or what else is possible here. They're trying to justify who has a harder life.
Yeah.
And so what are you saying is important to you, to the universe, if that's something that's happening?
Oh my God.
Right.
No
There you
kidding.
go. So with that energy, instead of being in the space of like being self-justifying about I've had such a hard life, well,
Yeah.
what else is possible here that would create lightness and ease for me, instead of
That's great. I'm so glad.
instead
I
of
did that.
identifying with I had a hard
Yeah.
life.
Glad you enjoyed our conversation.
Oh, very
Yeah.
much so. Very much, for so many
Cool.
reasons. Yeah.
Well, I will go ahead. Any final thing before I stop the stream that you want to throw out to people? Nope.
Come in person next time.
Yeah, come in person next time.
We'd love to have you.
We'll have a lot of fun. And the next time we'll be doing a live stream will be for Power of Possibility, which will be
About 2
on the
weeks.
second Tuesday of March. So we always do that on the second Tuesdays. And we'll see what else we're going to create. So, cool. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.